Mark Lee sitting in for Steve Rao today. We're going to see what happens and if anybody else comes by and has conversation with us. Of course, today is getting ready to be well, actually, tomorrow will be the official Juneteenth, even though there are Juneteenth celebrations going on. As a matter of fact, I know that there's one at the Hayti Heritage Center later on this afternoon. I believe it's from 3 until 9, and there'll be music, entertainment, and of course, there'll be conversations around the meaning of Juneteenth. And I believe they've even got like a game that will explain some of the history as well. So that's going on today, and I understand that there are other celebrations going on throughout the country and throughout the nation. One of the things that I'm curious about is that now that it's a holiday, how much of that holiday will be now a commercial holiday? Because, a lot of times folks will get off for holidays, they'll take days off and things of that nature. And of course, we will now see sales, probably Juneteenth kind of sales and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a holiday it becomes in that sense. We are known for commercializing things and all of that. So that's one of the dangers, as long as some of those companies are talking about the history and explaining some of the history of Juneteenth, I think it's all right. But sometimes with our holidays, we get a little bit too commercialized and we don't even think about the meaning of the holiday in and of itself. We've heard that about Christmas. We've heard that about Easter. We've heard that about Valentine's Day, and some would even argue about Martin Luther King Jr. Day as well. And by the way, that was the last federal holiday recognized before this one. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out in that regards. And like I said, I just wanted to put my words in of what was going on and all of that. I do see that we've got Nick joining us, so we'll have Nick come in and share some of his thoughts as well, since we've got Nick over here. And of course, Nick is doing all kinds of amazing things with the network and with things that are going on. So always glad to have Nick in the house. He is one of the founders of the network. Of course, he and Kim Calhoun, and I understand that Kim actually had a good afternoon on yesterday and everything. I was watching on some of the Facebook things and saw that they had the chance, her and some other associates, to go check out Chairman of the Board, which is a great group of folks in that R&B, beach music, or whatever you want to call it category. I would call it legends. That's what they actually are. They are legends in the music field, and I understand that they did a great job, even though I did not get a chance to get out there and see their performance. I believe it was somewhere around this triangle area and all of that, and I'll have to find out exactly where it was, how long it was, and all of that. So it'll be fascinating to find that out as well. So definitely all kinds of interesting things happening in the world, including what's going on with the vaccine, because apparently there were high hopes for the Johnson and Johnson's COVID vaccine, but those high hopes have fizzled, because the one and done vaccine has made up less than 4% of the US's total administered doses so far. So millions of vials will soon expire. So, that means that those millions of vials will be wasted, and that will not be going into anybody's arms or helping in the cause at all. But the vaccine's appeal has dropped after several controversies, and experts are now saying that the U.S. has missed a big opportunity to tackle health disparities. So definitely that's one of the things that's going on. And along those same lines, the European Union has recommended its 27 member nations lift a ban on non-essential travel from the United States, but each country will have to decide for itself. So as I bring in my good friend Nick, he'll have to be very glad about that, since Nick is actually going to be one of those folks that loves to travel. And I know that he's probably excited about the possibility of traveling around the world and all of that, particularly if those various countries in the EU do that. So, Nick, what are your thoughts about this whole concept of there about to be possibly some travel bans lifted and everything else? And I don't know if you heard of what I guess would be my version of an opening monologue, which is that I am definitely glad and even ecstatic that Juneteenth was created as a holiday. But my worry about that is that sometimes our holidays become a little bit too commercialized and all of that. So, folks get excited about the holiday, but then big companies like Walmart and others start, having Juneteenth sales and things along those lines, which have nothing to do with the meaning of the holiday. If they get out there and they have part of the displays, maybe being that some of the history of the reasons that we need to celebrate the freedom that exists within the country, particularly for the African American population, then I might be able to get behind that. But I'm just worried that we're going to see, big signs, Juneteenth blowout sale and all of that kind of stuff. So we do know that that happens in America with
Yeah.
commercialization and all of that. And then, like I said, Johnson and Johnson and those vaccines on another topic are causing problems in the sense that they've got not thousands but millions of vials that are about to be thrown into the waste baskets around the country because they're about to spoil and be no good, because they were having all kinds of controversies and all of that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about some of those items that I just brought up.
Great idea. As a matter of fact, you just gave me food for thought, Mark. I was going, well, that's an opportunity for all the capitalists that are listening to this to capitalize on a future event that doesn't take place. So realize that June doesn't really have any great holidays, so it's perfect to actually put it on June 19th. Our summer times lack for celebration, which is really very odd, but I guess it is what it is. In other words, you have 4th of July, and then the next really holiday is Labor Day. I mean,
Right.
in the meantime, you have all this other time, and then in May you have Memorial Day, and then if you're, we used to do Cinco de Mayo. So I used to have a lot of Cinco de Mayo events, which are pretty cool. So it's good to have that. It's a new holiday. It's something that the capitalists who are listening, the entrepreneurs, should look at ways to capitalize on it. And if you don't do it, Walmart will and Amazon will. So the small entrepreneurs have an opportunity to capitalize on that new event. Yes, and let's see, Joseph Biden signed that in. A big events international. Of course, he met with President Putin from Russia, and Russia is no longer the quote Soviet Union, which I don't know if they're happy about or not, but there's a lot of tension internationally between them and Ukraine, them and Europe, them and everybody except China, and perhaps even them and China. We just don't know that much about really what goes on over there. But you're right. I predicted actually the travel ban to be lifted. I'm going to New York in a couple weeks, and they're opening up New York just in time, which is good. Unfortunately, a lot of the shows aren't open yet. And then, of course, I head off to Europe, and I'm hoping that it will go on. But here's something I picked up while I was traveling, the other day, just accidentally. Alitalia, which is the big Italian airline, went to bankruptcy, Mark. Okay, and I didn't even hear about it till I was, just going through the internet looking at stuff, and then Alitalia, which is the Italian airline, the national airline, went under. And the other reason I was very interested, I have one of my flights, which is actually from Athens to Florence, on Alitalia, and I'm going like, what happened to my flight? I can't get on or anything like that. So it looks like they're still operating. They're working with the EU to reorganize, but it just shows the damage the pandemic did, Mark, to a lot of companies that were in. If you're in airlines, you're in the restaurant industry or the hospitality industry, you got hit pretty hard by the pandemic. A lot of the other industries didn't really get hit that hard. So it really depends on what industry that you were in. In our industry, since we do internet financial pensions, we didn't get hit hard at all. Matter of fact, we had a really good year. So it was weird to see that. See some of the industries that got hit and some of the industries that did not get hit by the pandemic. And the pandemic is still around. In other words, we're kind of like saying, well, it's not, because not everybody got vaccinated. I mean, this is one of the real problems. And there is a new variant coming out from maybe the UK or something like that. But there's a variant that's very deadly out there. But people tend to ignore it. In some states, it's almost like, well, I'll wait till the evidence comes in, all this other stuff. But they didn't, years ago when I was growing up, there was smallpox and polio. And I actually got to see people that got polio. It was not a good thing. Smallpox killed a lot of people. So your choice was take the smallpox vaccination or not. But right now, some people are even going, well, I'm not going to take it. My employer can't force me. There's actually a 1908 Supreme Court decision that says yes, they can.
Wow.
So yeah, I dug it up because when I was listening to it, I was going, maybe they can't force people to take vaccinations, but in 1908 they actually had a law that excuse me, it went all the way to Supreme Court. It was a smallpox vaccination, of course, forced them to take it, and people don't realize that the indigenous American natives here were not really killed by wars between the white settlers and the people coming in and the Native Americans. It was our diseases. We
Right.
wiped them out through smallpox. And I think that what happens is the new generation that is coming up is not aware of how deadly these diseases are to humans. I mean, they can wipe out the entire civilization. The Spanish flu, everybody's dead that when the Spanish flu was around. So the attitude is, it's just like when we do on our show, we run Modern Investing with Sasha. Right. Anybody who started investing probably around 2008 till today always saw up markets. They've never seen a down market, so they don't know what it's even like. So they always expect. So the real problem is we expect things to be, COVID isn't going to affect me. Viruses, if I take a vaccine, it's all bad, and then becomes the crazy conspiracy theories. Bill Gates is doing it. I mean,
oh yeah, of course, Bill's doing it. Speaking of that, I was just wondering, were you worried since you have this European trip that there are, as you just mentioned earlier, new variants out there? I just saw in the news that Portugal has definitely put people into a weekend lockdown because they ordered a weekend lockdown of the capital region of Lisbon, which started actually looks like it started today in an attempt to blunt a recent surge of new infections. And definitely that's all because of new cases that they've got and that have jumped over the last certain amount of time. And a lot of that has to do with that new variant that you were talking about, the Delta variant, which was first detected in India and then is on the rise in other countries, including Britain. And apparently the weekend lockdown goes into effect at 3 p.m. on Friday, and they might be ahead of us. So that might be, in fact, I know they're ahead of us. I just don't know how many hours ahead, but that might be right about now. And it's going to last until 6 a.m. on Monday. So it looks like it's going to last for, what's that, about a little bit more than 70, a little bit less than 72 hours. So it's going to be in effect for roughly 60 something hours and everything. So definitely, it is still out there and folks are still worried about it. So I'm just wondering if you have any concerns as you're getting ready to go on your trip.
I do, but I'm vaccinated, so I have no concerns about myself. I do have concerns about countries shutting down or not letting people in, or because I'm going to, I think right now it's Italy, Switzerland. I'm going to visit Ben. He had a great show this morning on the IBM TV network, and then I'm heading off to Greece and then back to Italy and maybe visit Roberto Soprano and Rome. So I've got quite a bit of visits to do, and we're testing something out, and those are commercial breaks, Mark.
Yeah, see that. That's you testing out some new things.
We'll
tested out some new things. But the sports world actually showed an example of you can be vaccinated and still run into problems because it is my understanding that one of the stars of a team that is sitting there waiting for their next opponent is in COVID protocol, and it is my understanding, if I'm understanding the news correctly, that he actually was vaccinated. But after they won and swept Denver and everything, then Chris Paul might have gone somewhere to a party or something like that. Wherever he went, he was exposed to somebody that apparently had the virus, or at least had symptoms of the virus. Therefore, he is in the COVID protocol. But it's my understanding that he, along with a lot of the other players, had been vaccinated, but he's still in the middle of a COVID protocol and will probably miss at least the first part of his next series, if not the entirety of the series, depending on how long the series goes on and all of that. Because then plus he's got to wait for his opponent. So actually he's having a little bit of a break because they've been dueling it out. And I think today was a possibility of a forced game 7 because they will play tonight, that being the LA Clippers and Utah. Now, one team is up, I believe, 3-2. And if they win that game, then they will go ahead and be ready to play him on or his team on Sunday. And if that's the case, then I think he's definitely missing the game. But I think he's going to miss it either way. But if by chance there's a game 7, that game 7 will be played on Sunday, and the next game won't be played until like Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. So he would only maybe miss the chances of him missing the entire series become less, is what I guess I'm trying to say, depending on how the COVID protocol goes.
Yeah. Now, with that, we'll take a break and we'll be right back.
What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to the All Around. I'm your gracious host, Dr. Anthony. Please tune in on Mondays at 6 p.m. for your entertainment purposes. We will hit current topics, old topics, and everything else in between. Be there or be square. Deuces, my loves.
Getting away from the serious topics. I love that commercial. Yeah. Getting away from the serious topics.
Too.
Getting away from the serious topics. I've got a story that I think folks will enjoy. You know, I was looking around in the news and I was trying to find something that folks might enjoy that wasn't all that serious. Sometimes, you know, we can get real serious even here on the network and everything. But, you know, there was a classic thing that everybody used to have happen in their life, or sometimes they would wish that it would happen if it didn't happen in their life, that we all did as kids and everything. And apparently a kid did it recently. And speaking of one of the countries we were talking about, Portugal and everything, it was involving a kid from Portugal. But apparently, and this was reported earlier in this week and everything, a Portuguese teenager found a message in a bottle that traveled at least 2,400 miles from a Vermont teenager. And do you remember, is when you were a kid, you would always put a message in a bottle and hope that it got somewhere. But apparently Christian Santos was spearfishing in the Azores when he found a crumpled plastic bottle. It was tossed into the sea near Rhode Island back in 2018. So it was actually tossed in the ocean before the pandemic. And Santos' mother, Molly Santos, posted a photo of the note on Facebook, asking for others to share the post in hopes of finding the writer to share how far the message had traveled. The note inside of a Powerade bottle was written in orange marker on a note card that reads, "It's Thanksgiving." So apparently it was dropped in Thanksgiving of 2018. "I'm 13 and visiting family in Rhode Island. I am from Vermont." The note included an email address to respond. Molly Santos said that she sent an email to the address but never received a response. So, like I said, who knows? Maybe the email's no good, and maybe they've changed email servers or something like that. But I just found that to be an interesting story, since I remember as a kid, I don't remember if I ever dropped notes, but I definitely remember people that would, you know, go on trips to the beach or go here and there, and they would want to do that. So apparently somebody did that in 2018, and earlier this week, somebody found the note. So like I said, that was dropped in the ocean some 2.5 years ago and everything, and it has made its way all the way to Portugal. Who knows how many folks it ran across, how many whales it ran into, and what other journeys the lovely bottle had, but it did make it to the shore of another country and all of that. And now folks are trying to figure out, you know, who's that belongs to and what to do with it. So Nick, as a kid, did you ever do that? Did you ever drop a note in the ocean hoping that it would be found and all of that? Because I just found that to be a fascinating story. The fact that, you know, we always want that to have happened, but apparently it happened.
Yeah, well, that is a fascinating story, but I've never done that, so I don't know. Oh, that's actually the backstory right now on the. Okay, that's the backstory. There's actually a backstory on that I was going to get up and show the video clip. But see, the problem when I do that, okay, is then the YouTube police or somebody, they come and stop you and say, "Oh, that's copyright material. You can't do that." So it's like we can talk about it, but we can't show the clips on it. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting. No, actually, when I grew up, we had a place on a lake in Florida. So we had 10 acres on a spring-fed lake. So because there was a lake, we never went to the ocean. We always went to our beach place on the lake, and I never dropped bottles in there. It was just like, where's it going to go? Around the lake. I mean, I heard about that type of stuff, but no, that's not what I did. And we just went swimming and fishing and did the normal things you would do on a beach, a lake beach property. But it was different because it was in Florida, and you could swim a lot in spring-fed lakes. It was really nice. So that was kind of it. So we just didn't go to the beaches that often. Instead, we just went to our own lake place, just the way it is. But the beaches in Florida were actually, and they are very good. So for the people that have a chance to go there, yeah, there's some of the top beaches in the world are actually in the state of Florida that you could go to.
Oh yeah, there's some great beaches on. I've actually went to Florida not that long ago, thoroughly enjoyed it. Went to Miami, and it's been years now since I went. I used to go to a festival down there, me and some of my friends, and we enjoyed going down to the American Black Film Festival in South Beach. South Beach is just a wonderful time. Like I said, there was some great Cuban food and some great other kinds of food that existed there. And of course, there was some amazing clubs and some amazing outlets and everything. I remember there was a hotel, I think it might have been owned by somebody from Europe and everything, but it was a very quaint little hotel, not the one that we stayed at, but it was just quaint. And we visited some of the people there at that spot because I think there might have been a bar there as well. And of course, they had some great restaurants. Like I remember one of the bar/clubs was an open club because you can get away with that in Miami. You might get slightly drenched depending on what's going on, but when I say open, it was like literally you could see the skyline from inside the club and all of that. And there was another club which I know had some history and it might still exist because one of its novelties was that it was called Beds, because literally within the club were beds. So that's why the club had that name, and they were like the regular mattresses and beds that folks sleep on a regular basis, but it was part of their decor and part of their selling points and all of that. So it was a very interesting thing because Miami's going to do some things Art Deco and interesting and all of that. And speaking of interesting, you would also get a kick out of this, and this is another one of those news that's weird stuff, but apparently there was a realtor in Colorado that was selling a home that they literally described as a little slice of hell because apparently the 5-bedroom
slice of hell, not heaven.
Little slice of hell.
You're selling a home. You're going to sell a home that has a little slice of hell. Is that what you're doing?
Well, apparently the house is deliberated, has 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and apparently it's been spray painted with all kinds of graffiti, and it's also got all kinds of other things that folks did that abused the house, meaning that there's all kinds of things going on that are not that pleasant in the house. And I'll just leave it at that. Y'all can guess what that might be, but just let's say it might involve bodily functions and all of that. But that being said, supposedly folks are actually wanting to buy the house, even though it's got a lot of interesting problems and everything else, and will definitely have to be having a lot of work done to it. But apparently they are getting a lot of interest in the home and everything. I guess folks are just like, they'll be willing to take it on, and as all of that is, they're just willing to still go out there and try to fix this house and everything, even though apparently the house has got all kinds of issues. And if you go to Redfin, the realtor was
go to Redfin,
brutally honest in her descriptions of the home, which she says is not for the faint of heart. So she even talks about the fact that the house is not for the faint of heart. But like I said, according to Denver 7, one of the channels, she has received 16 written cash offers in the first 24 hours of the house being on the market, and she's gotten about 89 text messages since we've gotten to the house this afternoon. So apparently the Colorado housing market,
the real estate market is so hot, you can now sell a little house of hell. Is that what you're saying?
Apparently that is what's going on, because the house market is that hot that you can get away from that. So she explained to the outlet that the housing market in Colorado is red hot. There's vastly fewer listings than usual, and most houses are selling as is. So apparently in that part of the world, and I imagine in other parts of the world as well, you can basically sell the house no matter what's going on with the house and no matter how bad the house is. And she actually did a YouTube feature video on the house, which was a virtual tour of the home, which was apparently, even more disconcerting because she used horror movie sound effects and begins the video by showcasing the neglected yard and how there's definitely problems within the wood throughout the house as well. And she said that the prior tenant had a menagerie of animals. I do know that sometimes if you've got animals, they might do things as well. So definitely she's showing the house being very uh, open about what the house is and everything. And apparently the owners of the past house had cats. And apparently they even left two of the cats in the house when they left and everything. So they might have abandoned the animals. And as a fan of pets, I'm not a big fan of folks that do that. So that's definitely not a good thing. But the realtor apparently is taking it in stride, put together this video, and is, like I said, getting offers for a house that is listed at looks like about $500,000, because the house is listed for $590,000.
A little house of hell. You can buy hell for $500,000. Wow, what a bargain! See, the thing is, when you're mentioning that, on the Wall Street Journal every Friday they come out with the mansion section. Okay, if you want a good fun read for those listeners out there, buy the Wall Street Journal for Friday just to read the mansion section, because Mark, it's amazing what people spend on their houses. And I'll give you this last one that just came up in Aspen, Colorado, where Wynn used to live, by the way, when Charles Wynn with Wynn, right? She moved to Florida, but she lived in Aspen. And I've been there. It's a nice little town. Okay, but try this. The house was sold for $72 million. Now, it wasn't a small house, but it wasn't that big. It was 22,000 square feet, which is a pretty nice size house, but it wasn't like it was, 100,000 square foot. It was 22,000 square foot for $72 million. It actually eclipsed the biggest sale that ever took place, which was actually that same house, for $45 million. But what gets me, Mark, is $72 million for a house in Aspen, Colorado. It's just astronomical. But if you look at the mansion section of the Wall Street Journal, you'll see all the housing prices are just, today in the United States, they're out of control. Even where I live, all the houses here are sold, and then and these are all townhouses. You can't even buy. There isn't any available, and the ones that are new construction that are about $200,000 overpriced on each one of them, because they go, well, I guess, can get it. But I can tell you, when it comes to the real estate market, I haven't seen this hot since 2007. What happened in 2007? Oh, the next year was 2008, and the market crashed. I mean, just went straight down the toilet, and everybody was, what's going on here? And that's when you could pick up your big buys and buy things. They were giving houses away in 2009. Mark, I mean, you could pick up these houses in Florida for like $72,000, a big, nice home. They just couldn't get rid of them fast enough. So my concern is really with this market, the stock market at all-time high, real estate at an all-time high. When's that going to collapse? I don't know, but we do have, we're going to take a break, and maybe we'll take a break right now, and then we'll come back and these people can help us out.
And that'll be coming. These breaks are just amazing. Are they great?
Yeah,
those are great, amazing breaks.
Well, we got to start getting used to that format.
No, I like that format. Every 15 minutes, take a break. I can even do that in my show, even those ones that are twice long. I've actually been doing that. I've actually been taking breaks sometimes, even to get a water break or to have my guest talk. So I'm actually kind of liking these breaks in between. Sometimes the conversations are good and engaging, so don't always feel that I need the breaks, but sometimes the breaks are very good. I'm on a pet kick right now, even though I don't have any pets floating around this apartment and everything. But I was going to share two more stories with you that I think you find kind of funny. One of them involving our president, but where they both involve pets and everything. But there was a lady in Oregon. We are global, so we definitely want to include things that are going on around the world. And of course, we had the bottles that went to Portugal from Vermont, and the other story about the house in Colorado. But there was a lady in Oregon, Beaverton, Oregon, that apparently she's made the news as well because she had a very unusual way of letting folks know about her kleptomaniac cat. So she's put up a sign about her cat, letting folks know that she's got this cat that likes to steal things and everything. So she put up a sign so that her neighbors could retrieve their belongings that had been snatched by Esme, which is her charismatic black cat. And the sign says, "My cat is a thief." And it includes a drawing of Esme with a glove in her mouth. And next to the sign is a small clothesline with numerous gloves and a face mask. So somebody also lost a face mask as well. So she says it's worked a little bit. People have come by, mostly taking pictures, but she did see a school bus drive by and take a few pairs of the gloves. So whether those gloves belong to the school kids or that they just needed gloves, who knows? But the sign has gone viral on social media, with many Twitter users sharing tales of their own cats bringing home ill-gotten goods. And we do know that pets, including cats, sometimes like to bring home ill-gotten goods. So, there's that expression, a cat burglar. Well, this was a real cat burglar, not the cat burglar that's like the human that steals things, but this was a real cat burglar. And coming back to the Bidens, and I know this for a fact, that sometimes animals can be not the most trained animals in the world and everything, but apparently the dogs are back. The Biden's dogs are back. And I know my mom, before she let go of the dog and will now try to get a new dog at some point or another, she was having a dog that did not have the best training in the world. And I think it might have been a rescue dog and all of that. But apparently the Biden's dogs had apparently sniped at a few people, maybe even some people in the White House. So they had to send the dog back home to Delaware and maybe even go through some dog training and all of that. But now the dogs have been, told not to snipe. And I don't know who they were sniping at. So I'm just going to make this as kind of a joke, but not to snipe at the Republicans and not to bite at the press and everything. So apparently the dogs are now listening. So they are back at the White House, but they had gone for a minute to the whole area of back to Delaware because they had to be trained because, Biden and his lovely wife, the good Dr. Jill, were sitting there and had been probably told that there might have been some aids because I think some of the staff members had also had the dog kind of growl at them and maybe even try to take some skin and everything like that. So, I guess the dogs were being defensive in terms of guarding their owners and everything. But it does look like they are back in the White House and have been gone through the training that they're supposed to. So it looks like they are allowed back home and everything. So I don't know if you ever had a contentious dog that did not like some of your clients or things of that nature. And I'm visualizing, and like I said, it's a Friday and we're having a relaxed Friday, but I'm visualizing Mitch McConnell walking by and all of a sudden the dogs growl.
Yeah, and the dogs are named Champ and Major. By the way, I checked it up on the internet because it's a future trivia question. Name Biden's two dogs. Okay, I mean, they do stuff like that in some of these crazy trivia questions. So it's Champ and Major, for what it's worth. I tried to get up on the screen, but I was unable to get up on the screen the pictures of the dogs. But there's some cool pictures on the internet with the Champ and Major on there. So, yeah, it looks like they made it to the big leagues, the Biden's dogs. So apparently he's back at home here. So what do you think he accomplished on this trip? He went to see the G7. He went to see Putin, and now he's back. What do you think he accomplished, Mark, or did he accomplish anything?
I'm trying to figure that out. The problem with these kind of events is that you never are quite sure what's accomplished until later on. Like I said, I know he was talking about trying to make sure that the Russians did not continue to launch into cyber attacks and all of that. But it looks like definitely there were some words that were said between the two, and there might have even been some concessions made as to what was done or not done. So now it's just going to be a matter of there's a classic song. I'm into my music and everything, and there's a classic blues song called "Lip Service and Lies." So we're just gonna have to see whether it was lip service and lies that both people were giving each other, or whether they're actually gonna have some actual concrete actions that are taken. And that's even with the EU, because like I said, there was promises about what we can do in the response of climate change, in the response of definitely cyber wars. And I know that sometimes Mr. Cole comes on and talks about what's going on in that regards and everything. But definitely it's going to be interesting to see how much of that is just talk and how much of that is going to be action items that people can actually follow up with and all of that. So it's going to be quite fascinating to see how this plays out. But I am hoping that that is the case and everything. But it'll be interesting because I'm always fascinated. I'm trying to think of how many times things have actually been accomplished. Sometimes it's just a glorified vacation for the White House and the White House staff. There were definitely times at Camp David. I remember, I don't remember which president off the top of my head, but there were some peace accords that were done out at Camp David, and they lasted for a while and did involve the Middle East. They may not have lasted for a long time. There was definitely some presidential actions, historically speaking, that impacted what went on with apartheid and the eventual ending of apartheid and a free South Africa. There have been definitely times that things have been done even in the European nations that actually were concrete action items. But what actually comes out this time, only time will tell. And I would say the same thing happened with those items that I mentioned, because like I said, I'm sure people even wondering about Camp David and the Middle East Accords when they happened, and some of the apartheid stuff. And then, eventually things were done, and there was actual things that were done in terms of that. One of the things that came out of it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this as well, is that whenever these talks go on, there's talks of a group of folks that we don't like to talk about all that much, and they do exist. They exist both here in the United States, and they exist around the world. But and definitely they exist in Russia. Wish Sasha was here so we could talk to him about it. They also exist, I would argue, in Australia, where Shaquille is and everything. But even here in the United States, we have what amounts to political prisoners, and some of these political prisoners might be folks that are with other countries that are our adversaries, and they have associations with other countries, but there are also political prisoners that might be involved in politics that the American government, for whatever reasons, does not agree with. I would argue that Mahmoud Abdul-Jabbar, who was one of the MOVE members and is still in prison, is a political prisoner. I would argue that Leonard Pilter, who is an Indian activist, is a political prisoner. And I could argue that a couple of others that are still sitting in various prison cells are political prisoners, because while they might have been arrested on one charge or another that had nothing to do with their activism, the truth of the matter is that they are in the prison cells because of their political background. The other charge might have just been a tool to get them into the prison that they wanted to get them into. So like I said, it's interesting when folks think about what goes on in the world, and the fact that we have to admit that there are political prisoners throughout the world, including right here in the United States.
Yeah, and you got a point there, Mark, that we tend to look like Navalny. Biden goes, I'm going to talk to Putin about Navalny and human rights. And what Putin, being diplomatic, didn't say, oh, we're going to talk about Navalny. He didn't even mention the guy's name in human rights. Are we also going to talk about Guantanamo Bay?
Right.
And then what is Biden supposed to say? Well, Guantanamo, or the names that you just mentioned. And you're right, that does exist here in the United States as well as other countries, is that people are in for prison for things, and the charge may be something totally different, but the real reason they're in is that we don't like this person, so we're going to put them in. But it also brings up the over-policing that exists here in this country. We do have an over-policing problem, and I think that's what's brought out in the Black Lives Matter movement, is that it's affected a lot of people, and a lot of people are affected quietly. They don't complain. They just go, It is what it is. The system is what it is.
I mean, we just had an incident right here in North Carolina. I believe that was either yesterday or a few days ago in a small town of Newton Grove, North Carolina. But we just had an incident, and some people, I've watched the video. It's all out on social media, and yes, the guy might have been reaching for his back pocket for something. Some people have speculated that he was reaching for a gun that was back there before the officer fired at him and took him down. And apparently he's in, I won't say the last I heard he was in critical condition, but I did not, and I might have to go back and watch the videos again and again to see if it looks like a gun, or it could have been, for all I know, he was reaching for his wallet. I mean, he was definitely.
It creates a scary situation, because if you get pulled over by a police, the first thing they ask is, "Can I get your driver's license?" And you reach into your pocket and they shoot you. What are you shooting me for? Well, I thought you were reaching for a gun. I'm going like, oh Lord, are you kidding me? You see, the thing is, it creates a lot of potential problems that exist in the United States. The other problem that we have, of course, is this climate change that tends to be ignored. The U.S. is very fortunate. We have the 5th largest economy in the world in one state, California. We have the 10th largest economy in the world, Texas. So, those are big economies. If they were countries, they would be the 5th and 10th largest, respectively. Florida would be the 20th. But what they're receiving right now is huge amount of heat that is record high. And the reason people think it's climate change is, what else could it be? It's not climate as normal. So the thing is, it's definitely climate change. The only question is what's causing it, and can we control it? And I've argued up and down the internet about this because it's so hard to prove. Scientists from the IPCC, 97% of them, say it's anthropomorphic, which in English means people cause it. Okay, 3% say it's random, sunspots, random things happen. The Earth climate goes up and down, which they're also correct. It does go up and down. But we can't control the up and down. We can control the anthropomorphic aspects of climate change. And this may be the beginning of the brunt. We don't know. But if you want to make some good predictions this year, I would predict fires in the West. It's going to be really, really bad year. Hurricanes in the South, really bad year. And those are pretty easy predictions to make. The only problem I have, Mark, I don't know how you capitalize on those predictions. In other words,
you're missing one. You're missing one, though, because I just saw it, and we actually talked about it on a show that I'm in the process, and definitely it airs sometimes when I can remember to put it on and everything. But we mentioned it on my friend Mr. Bachelor's sports/news show. But the one you're missing is that of tornadoes, because apparently tornadoes have also been increasing as well.
You're tornadoes have been increasing. Tornadoes in the Midwest. So the thing is, predicting all these things is
not just the Midwest, Nick. Apparently they're expanding across the South.
Right. You're around the South. Yeah, right. So the thing is, all those changes, are going to take place. But if you're an investor, I go, well, what do you invest in on things like this? They're all catastrophes that are going to probably take place this year, and coronavirus will still not be away. And here's another problem, that because we actually, on the IBM TV network, we actually predicted that all this would take place, and by the following year things would start clearing up, and all that's coming true. But here's another thing that we're really not really sure of, is a variant, a mutant coronavirus could create another havoc this winter. And they've already had a couple of them, but the vaccine's effective against it right now. But anybody who works in the medical field is familiar with getting these mutants or variants that are resistant to the drug that you just came out with. Now that could be a real problem if that takes place this year. And with that, we're just going to take another break. We'll come back. Yeah, it's a good thought to leave off before we come back
with and talk about something around that. But I do have some thoughts around that.
Happy thought. Okay.
Cool. We had a great conversation on the Gamers Den yesterday. Me and Jacoby, along with Kara Oker and Janora, who's been joining us lately as well. Janora is Jacoby's sister and also a member of the acting community and voiceover community over there in Los Angeles. So, of course, we've been celebrating Pride, and she is involved in a relationship between her and her wife and everything. So, of course, she's been there celebrating Pride as well. So definitely we engage in a lot of.
Should we have our meeting on the 14th rather than the 15th, because you guys run Gamers Den on Thursday, and the 15th Thursday, July 15th? I can switch it to the 14th.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's switch it to the.
All right. I'm gonna put a notice out. We'll do July 14th because I just realized there's Gamers Den, and that's going to create a lot of problems with you and Jacoby being there. So if we make it on the 14th, then we can go over it. Gamers Den is a really great show and it's in a great area too, a great space, which is, the video game market space, which is bigger than the movie industry right now and television combined.
Oh, it's bigger than that. And then we actually talked about some interesting things because we did talk about the diversity that exists within the gaming industry and some of the games that are being created by African-American designers, but we also talked about even some of the games that feature characters that are in the LGBTI plus community, meaning that the characters are either, in some case, they may be gender fluid, in some cases, they may be even strong lesbian characters and things of that nature. So we did talk about that within the show, and we talked about a lot of other very pertinent conversation topics, and we just had a good dialogue like we oftentimes do, and we brought up something that I had found in the news. I believe that was on that show that I think that you would find interesting as well, talking about strange news and everything. But apparently earlier this week here in the Americas and everything, but particularly North America, there's a classic biblical story. It's called Jonas and the Whale. And apparently somebody locally, or at least in America, was swallowed up by a whale, and he was swallowed up for about a minute or two. And apparently, according to his, I believe it was his, I can't remember if it was his wife or his mother, but it's one of the people that's involved in his life, said that he's in good shape and all of that. But the whale apparently mistook him for a snack. The whale thought that he was a pretzel or something like that in terms of American and us humans and everything. So the whale thought that he was a version of a pretzel or a potato chip and swallowed him for a minute or so along those lines. So he was not in the whale's area for too long, but long enough. So like I said, that was just fascinating that I saw that story that a gentleman over there in the northern parts of, because I think it was off the coast of Maine, if I remember it correctly, but he was definitely swallowed by a whale. So I found that to be an interesting and fascinating story. I did want to come back just really briefly, and that's not on the kind of humorous side, but about the prisoners and everything. So what I was going to say about that as well is that, one of our most notorious criminals was actually not arrested before he was killed and everything because of, per se, his history of being a bank robber and all of that. What the United States actually caught him on was tax evasion, and that was being, of course, Dillinger and everything. I mean, Al Capone, right? Al Capone, right? So they did actually not catch him on the other thing, but they caught him off of a tax record. So, if it's one that's involved in that field, you probably can talk about how sometimes it's not necessarily the crime that gets you. It might be some of the things that you do with the crime. Because like I said, as I recall, he was caught by tax evasion.
Right. Yeah. It was. He was caught on a tax charge, but that's again that was an easier way to prosecute than try to. He was very good at covering up his tracks for all those other types of crimes, and it also involves where he wasn't the person who pulls the trigger. He's the guy that sets up the people that pull the trigger, and I think this is where Biden was trying to explain to President Putin that he's not the guy. But let's say he's not the guy who's committing the cyber crimes. But what happens is they harbor the people that are there that are doing the cyber crimes. In other words, they're living in Russia, and the real problem is we can't get to them when they live in Russia. Now, my experience in Russia was actually a pretty good one. I enjoyed the country. I got to spend 10 days in St. Petersburg. So I flew over there after missing my flight from Paris. And and the people were really nice. I mean, you blend in really easy with the people there. A lot of tourists there looking at the Hermitage. I can't speak Russian very well, but they spoke English very well. That's the great thing of traveling today, Mark, is that these people are kind enough to speak our language, where I have a real problem struggling with theirs. They speak English pretty well, and it's a beautiful country, a beautiful city. Got a little ripped off on the taxi cab drive to the hotel, probably overcharged, but what the heck. And then the only other bad experience while in the Cathedral of St. Peter's and Paul, I reached up with the camera because my wife wanted me to take a picture, and I got bumped. And then I reached into my wallet, and guess where it was? It was gone. It was gone, baby. I got pickpocketed, baby. And the thing is,
watch out for those pickpockets.
Yeah, they have pickpockets along the Nevesti Prospect, but also in the Cathedral of St. Peter's and Paul. And what they do is they run a band. In other words, they run as a team. So it's not one person pickpocketing you, it's two. So one will come to you and bump you, Mark, while the other one reaches in your pocket and pulls out your wallet and they both run away. And unfortunately, I chased down the guy that actually chased down and stopped one of them, but he's the guy that had the wallet. In other words, you have a 50-50 chance even if you chase him down and grab him. Then I went to the police, and of course they gave me back my ID, which is something I really wanted, and I canceled all my credit cards. So they didn't get any money.
You have to do that.
They got like $20 or $30, and that was about it. But they were looking to obviously use the credit cards there, and they saved me so much money, Mark, by doing that. Because once they took my credit cards and canceled them, I wasn't able to buy all the garbage I was going to buy when I was there. Okay?
That's right. So, they did you a favor. How nice of the robbers.
Financially, they did me a favor.
The robbers did you a favor. Speaking of favors,
money on all this garbage. Right. I would have bought their little trinkets.
Oh, you would have bought figurines. You would have bought all kinds of junk. Speaking of favors, apparently the fine folks in the travel industry have not been done a favor. So apparently I know that I have only been on one in my life, was hoping to go on some more at some point or another. But health officials in the United States had eased their stance on the safety of cruise travel for vaccinated passengers, lowering the travel alert level down and everything. And the first cruise was scheduled to go on the ocean from the U.S. ports. And it's been about 15 months since they've been doing cruises and everything. So not that long ago, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention lowered its health notice on cruise travel from level 4, which recommends avoiding all travel, to level 3, which encourages travelers to get fully vaccinated before traveling. That's all good and well, but now we've just recently learned that Royal Caribbean, one of the major ships and everything, has postponed its inaugural ship sailing after 8 crew members tested positive for COVID-19. They were on the road and having this happen. And of course, that's one of the major cruise lines and all of that. And now they're having to postpone it. And I'm sure some of the other trips and some of the other ships may still be going on. But I do know Royal Caribbean was one that was planning to take off as of yesterday, which was June 16th. They had to postpone it because it was going to be the ship Odyssey. And they had 8 vaccinated crew members. So they were actually vaccinated.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they were vaccinated and they still tested positive. And now they're going to have to delay that. So that's going to be fascinating to see how this even impacts industries like definitely plane travel, but also that in the cruise industry. And like I said, I had the pleasure of going on my first cruise like about 2.5 years ago and all of that, and was hoping to go on some more. But the first sailing from a U.S. port is actually not that Royal Caribbean one, but it is scheduled to depart on June 26th from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on the Celebrity Cruises Celebrity Edge. So in about a week, we're supposed to have the first cruise taken off, but we're going to see whether that's actually the case or whether they have issues as well. But there is supposed to be a cruise taking off on next Saturday. That's right. 26th would be next Saturday. So there's supposed to be a cruise taking off next Saturday. But definitely the cruise giant Carnival is saying that customers have been affected by the breach that they had and everything. And one person that I was seeing a news story was saying that they needed a much needed vacation. And of course, their vacation plans have now been somewhat changed and everything. So that's just some of the things going on in the world of cruises. So I know some folks love those things. I went on my first one, like I said, about 2.5 years ago. Enjoyed. There were parts of the cruise that I really enjoyed. Like I enjoyed the travel part and seeing places that I hadn't seen. I went to Grand Turks, Puerto Rico, and some other places like that. But I enjoyed that. But I also, when I go to places, like to go off the beaten trail and not necessarily just the tourist spots and all of that. So I did not do a lot of that on the trip that I went on and everything. And I also like to enjoy the entertainment. There was great entertainment on the cruise. I think there was a magician. There might have been some definitely bands playing and definitely the dueling pianos and all of that. And of course, the food is super great. I will tell you, I don't know if you remember this, Nick, but those art salesmen can be super aggressive because they always want you to come to their sales and to buy things that you probably can't afford, because it's usually artists that are on the high end and everything. So they can be, and the photographers also, but the art salespeople and the photographers can be a little bit on the uber aggressive side in my mind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, the cruise industry also got hit pretty bad during the pandemic. So we'll be fortunate to see it back. It looks like the airlines are picking up right now, at least around Raleigh, Durham. And New Delhi, though, is still having problems. So like bringing Ankit in and out, and Meds Friday and some of our shows have been, let's put it this way, temporarily postponed because the pandemic still is going pretty bad over in New Delhi, India. So we're hoping to get that part up. We actually have a person who wants to do a show with our medical doctors, but we can't get the medical doctors on right now. He does a thing called VMed, which is what they do is they attach to your cell phone, your vital signs are attached so that people can read your vital signs at any point in time. So it's a pretty interesting product. But we wanted to have them on with Med Friday, but the problem is we can't get the doctors because doctors are still busy. COVID-19, it's in the rear view mirror, Mark, but it's still there. In other words,
still there, and I'm still waiting for that other shoe to drop. I know we say that it's in the rearview mirror and that it's more and more people are getting vaccinated. I think that we might be somewhere around that 50% threshold, but it's nowhere near the 70-something% that Biden wanted by the 4th of July, and the 4th of July is only a few weeks away and everything. So I don't think that that's going to happen. And, I do remember being somewhat of a student of history that sometimes that other shoe does drop and everything. So I'm always worried about that.
Yeah, I'm going to be up in New York during the 4th of July weekend. So we have a meeting up on July 3rd, and then it looks like we're going to be at another meeting on July 4th. So I'm going to be in New York City during that week, which again will be like the second flight I've actually taken since we got the vaccination. And New York is open, so that's going to be good. So all my reports will be from New York, or else I'm not going to report at all because I'll be in New York. So hopefully we'll be able to keep the World Edition and everything going. But it's actually had an effect on what we do here at the IBM TV network, or International Broadcast Media, that we actually now broadcast on the P.O.D TV network, and we're of course looking for other sources to broadcast. And Gamers Den, to me, Mark, is a great show that can be upstreamed, packaged and upstream. So I'm glad to see you're a part of that, because that's certainly a very worthy television show, I think, is Gamers Den, that people will like to watch that. World Edition is the tough one because it goes on every day, at least 5 days a week. And Steve, I think, will be back next week.
He did say he'll be back next week. He had a little bit of a necessity to go back to the beach because he had some folks that
were to go back to the beach. Okay,
he had to go back to the beach, but it was not for a pleasant reason. Apparently, one of his kids is not the. I just put it this way: one of his kids may not be the best driver in the world, and I'll just leave it at that. So he had to deal with that and everything. But everybody seems to be safe and doing well. But whatever was going on, they had to deal with that. But he did tell me that he would be back on Monday. And of course, one of the things he's talking about, which I think will help the show and everything, is doing similar to what we did yesterday. So having a series of guests, some that are talking about like smart cities, which I know is a passion of his, but also folks that are dealing with other issues as well. So I know a lot of times, even when I'm watching other networks, they will definitely do as we've been doing, having dialogue about the world issues, both of the serious news as well as kind of human interest stories. But they will also have interviews going on as well. So it'll be good to see that happen. And I know I've talked to him about a few folks that I might be interested in bringing on. I'm sure that Sasha and our other members of our team may have folks that they want to bring on. So it sounds like we'll be having dialogue, but also news at the same time. So that will definitely be a great addition. And I think some of that may even be happening as early as next week.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess we're at the hour then, right?
We are.
So we say goodbye to our listeners around the world, especially the ones on international news. And we'll see you next week with Steve. Will be back for more of World Edition. We'll see everybody then.
That sounds good.